Howdy folks, Luke Simons with you. Back to the Basics 101. Today I'm going to show you how to treat your wood-handled tools. Now some of your tools, like your auto mechanics, ball peen hammers, etc., are going to get naturally oiled and eventually they will turn very black on you, just from working with grease and oil, etc. Your tools that you're working with wood will dry out and eventually the handle will come off. You see that? It'll just come off. This is an old carpenter's axe and I just resat him down. Carved all that out with my pocket knife, of course. Use the Leatherman. This is an old tradition here. You just drill a small hole, maybe that thick or so, in for traction. And you always try to, let me show you something here real quick. If you can, find, when you're looking for a handle, they'll come varnished. That's a no-no. You don't want varnish on your handles. Let me move this light here a little bit for you. Yeah, I don't know if you can see that. That's not helping any. Oh, maybe a little bit. You want your grains to be as close as possible on this side. It doesn't matter on this side so much. But on this side, you want those grains to be as tight as possible. This is the best one they had. This is a big handle. I have a special project coming up for this guy here. You're asking, what is it? This one here is a Stanley H122, so I believe it's something from the 1950s. My father gave me this. As a child, I used this for my axe, basically. It had a shorter handle on, which actually just bit the bit on me just recently here, this winter. I just hung that pretty nice. It really tight. That's the most tight I've ever put one on. She's put together pretty tight. Need to sharpen him yet. So, but yeah, I got a project coming up here with this. Stay tuned on that. And sanded all that varnish off. And that's the point of the video. How and what to put on. If you want a handle to look like this, I had an axe that my son went after something, and he was young, and it was my favorite axe, and he put some really bad nicks into this axe head, which is an abomination, I think. Not in the Bible, but it should be. So I took it to the chainsaw store, and I told him just redo it completely. At the time, I didn't have a sander, a belt sander that would do something like that I wanted done to that axe. And when they seen the handle, which is outside, which is cold, so I'm not going to, that's the other thing, store your stuff outside. Don't store them in the heat, because your heads will loosen up when you take them in and out of the elements. He said, Luke, out of the thousands of axes we've had into this shop, we have never seen an axe handle that was so highly polished. Simple. It's simple. Linseed oil. Boiled linseed oil works. You can get it in a small can, you can get it in a big can. I suggest a small can, like a pint can, because that'll go a long ways unless you're doing shovels and everything, which I do. I actually cheap it down for shovels. I use a mixture of diesel, used motor oil. Shovels, you know, it's a shovel, and it works really good, and actually it's kind of pretty, and it doesn't get your hands dirty. But recently, I came across a video, a YouTube video, by an old timer in the same state that I live in. And I love this guy. I mean, his videos are not professional. Of course, my videos aren't really professional either, for that matter. And he's just an old timer, and drives a bunch of neat old stuff and just a neat old guy and does some neat things, neat tricks. And he was treating an old Russian mouzant and some axes and such with something a little different than just linseed oil. Log Cabin Looms is the name of the show, and I'll try to put a link in the description below. It's actually a bigger YouTube channel than mine, and he's not quite large or anything like that, but really neat. This is what he did. I bought this can from the local hardware store, and I actually put the name of his on here, Log Cabin Looms, and then I mixed it with half pine tar and half boiled linseed oil. Now, pine tar can be purchased pretty much anywhere on the Amazon, wherever you want to buy it from. I bought it from my hardware store, actually from a feed store, and you treat hooves with it, horses' hooves with pine tar. And it is some nasty stuff. It's gooey, it sticks on to about anything, and I didn't realize this, but Log Cabin Looms, the old timer there, said that the Vikings treated their ships in pine tar. And they're old, they're very old. And so this is half pine tar and half boiled linseed oil. The texture is very much still like probably a boiled linseed oil, really. But it's a pretty good combination of such. It doesn't really have an odor to it, although pine tar, I believe, would probably be, you can see the lid there. That's about what it is. Both of them together are probably flammable, I would say, but not anything that you'd have to worry about as far as you know, open can and a fire, wood stove going behind me right now. Not like gasoline is what I'm trying to say. Now you want to get a rag that is phenomenal. This rag here is perfect. It's an old sock, actually. Let's do a little check here. This is a council tool. It's a 2-pound head with an 18-inch handle, and it's called a Hudson Bay. Now I originally read about this animal right here that I'm holding in my hand from Wranglerstar, actually, Cody. And you know, it was a cheap budget axe, hatchet, camping hatchet. And I've used it camping quite a bit. I made a really awesome little case for it. I try to make all my own cases, of course. I'll show you a little bit more of that towards the end of the video. This is a made in the United States, stamped in. It is somewhat crude. I mean, this is somewhat crude, cast of some sort, cast iron, obviously. It has the symbol of a council tool, and it has a good beard on it, which I like a bearded axe because it stays out of your cutting range usually. The only thing I don't like about this, and Cody didn't say this, because when he recommended it, he obviously didn't use it a whole lot. At least this one here has this issue. The fawn's foot. The end of an axe is called a fawn's foot. And if you don't know about Cody or Wranglerstar, you probably did see one of his videos. It's a huge, very big show, Christian-oriented. I like Cody, I'll tell you. I like his family. But someday I'd like to meet him. It doesn't come out enough. So my hands are quite large to extra large gloves. And when you swing this, it has a tendency to want to bow in your hand. So when you swing it, it wants to bow in your hand. Now, because of its weight, nice head, hammerhead on it. I mean, you obviously wouldn't pound nails with that. That's soft iron. It does make kindling very nice, very nice. I never did like batoning with a knife. out in a camping situation. That to me just doesn't make any sense at all. If you're batoning with a knife, and batoning is literally, you take a, let's see here, obviously this isn't it, a piece of wood, and you're going like this to split wood. You can do that, but you're going to spend the whole day sharpening your knife. Survival? You bet. I'd do it in a heartbeat. But not a good idea as far as doing that every day. I mean, literally, you'd be sharpening your knife every single day. That is for emergency case only. Ideally, axe, hatchet. That makes kindling. A lot of people don't see the importance of making kindling because they don't make fires a whole lot. We make a fire, well, I kindle a fire every day, 3 times a day probably. The kids all know how to make a fire very well because we have a wood stove. We heat primarily with a wood stove. Back to the hatchet here. It came so dull I could have rode to Texas here and back and not cut myself. Very childproof. It took me a long time to put that blade on. And actually, it's kind of embarrassing because there's a couple of nicks in there. And that was just from firewood. So it actually is probably not the best. I wasn't abusing that to put those nicks in there. For under 40 bucks, I mean, yeah, it's probably okay. But is it the best steel? I don't know. I'm not a steel expert, but it came dull. That's a drawback. The other thing is it doesn't fit my hand. This could have been much, much bigger. That is like girly almost. Nothing against girls, but whatever. I'll get hate for that, I'm sure. So, anyways, we have our pine tar. I told you what I like and what I don't like about this. Budget-wise, great. It works awesome. Throw it behind your seat. If you're going to throw it behind your seat and after you make it a razor, obviously. Oops. There we go. After you make a case for it, and if you don't have a sew-all, get a sew-all. You can do stitches like that and like that with a sew-all. It just makes it really, really nice. And I used a pretty heavy gauged leather for that because I wanted something that was going to last. And put a little bit of grease on that, and then so every time you put this on, you are greasing your axe head or your cutting edge. Okay? Just a little bit, nothing spectacular. So I don't cut myself. I'll put that on. Actually, we'll take it off because I forgot what I was going to do here. So, with your high dollar rag, I just dip it into the solution. Now, it has the same feel with just a little bit different odor as boiled linseed oil. But it has a little bit of an odor from the pine tar. Okay? Let's adjust this a little bit differently here. Low budget filming here. Hey, we don't really get paid for this, so. Well, I got projects in the back here. We want to make ourselves a little more professional. There we go. Let's put my leather hands here so the camera doesn't move anymore, okay? All right, here we go. And a lot of mistakes that I see is people don't work it into the edge, which bothers me. I have a whole zoo full of pet peeves. I'm telling you, old pastor that I knew used to say that. All of my kids are off skiing with our youth group, except for little Libby. She's home. And if your tools are hungry, when I say hungry, what I mean by that is they will absolutely suck this up. Big time will they suck it up. You want it somewhat wet. This tool here, I've had this for a couple years now. And so this is probably my third or fourth time. Oh, one good thing about this hatchet as well, the council tool, Hudson Bay hatchet, is that it came with no varnish on the handle. So at least that is cool. That is cool. And I've thought about giving this to my son for his vehicle, you know, basically with a hatchet and some way to create fire, and a nice knife, of course, is very nice. You could survive. You know, we get 45 below zero, and you could survive. The bad thing about surviving is most people don't even know where a sandwich lives. They would all starve to death. The facts are that most country folks are heavily armed, but they also leave their vehicles open. Now you're seeing I'm wiping the excess off. There's a reason for that, because it'll soak in. Throw another coat on an hour later. Hit the head where it's hung up as well. When you're hanging a new handle, always put your solution on the inside of your handle as well. It's very important. We'll set that aside. Now last night I finished this handle and not 100% happy with it. It swings funny. It swings great from a chopping end. A little awkward right here. I put what they call a California framing hammer handle on this bad boy. Again, we just drilled holes, very minimal, little dinky holes. How you do that is if this is your drill bit right here. Right here, okay. You just put a little bit of masking tape right on there, and that way you just drill to the masking tape, and all your holes will be perfect. And you don't want it very deep. You don't want to hurt the structure of the hammer. Now you can make grooves in here, and I've done that many times when I was out in the oil field with sledgehammers. You put grooves in here. You don't want that hammer to come off and hurt somebody. So you need traction. Obviously you're covered in grease, etc. But this here, if you're swinging all day long, those grooves will actually cut into your hands. Where this here is not, but it gives you a beautiful traction on there. Now, I took my Leathermans and I just went ahead and custom made that handle. It's going to fit tight. I mean, this is very tight. Very dull. When I was working with it, I didn't want it sharp. Hung that. Very tight fit. Turned out what I think is really beautiful. It's very put together well. And you can see the grains on there. They're pretty tight. Tightest I could find. And of course this was varnished. I don't know why. I know why they do it. They do it so they sell. Otherwise, somebody touches it and they have dust from the shipping container boxes and such. Then all of a sudden you're buying a dirty handle. People aren't going to buy them. They just won't. We live in a raccoon monkey world where things have to be shiny for you to buy them. And we'll just treat them up. If you're still watching this video, you don't have much to do in your life. I'm telling you. I don't know if I've watched it this long. Wait a minute. I'm supposed to be encouraging you to watch it. And it will suck it in. Just will. Please, whatever you do, do not use varnish on your handles. I have my grandpa's old hatchet that I did varnish. I was young when I did that. And I probably only had 1 or 2 kids, so I'd have been like 23 years old probably. Thought, well, I'm going to use it for a showpiece, and I varnished it. Whatever. That's the sacred chicken header cutter offer. And that's what we call it too. I didn't slur that. The chicken header cutter offer. And of course, meaning you have that exposed wood in there with them little holes, you want to make sure that that gets saturated. You don't want to pour it in there, otherwise it'll bubble. And you don't want it to bubble, otherwise it won't work itself in. And wood, this is important, wood is still a living, breathing thing, just like your hands. You know, men, I don't use lotion. Well, that's fine, but you're gonna have dry hands as well. And when you put linseed oil or something like that on your leather, it's going to breathe. And a leather belt can last 60, 70 years if you treat it well. All leather is that way. Most leather, the reason why it cracks up and such is because it's not taken care of. But leather is a green product. And yes, it comes from the skins of animals. That's what it is. So wood is the same way. Wood is the exact same way. It'll last for almost ever if properly treated. It just, you don't want it to dry out. It's like putting lotion on something. That's right, I told you I was going to show you that case a little bit. Well, if you haven't watched my video of what it is to have a sewing awl, I would suggest you watch that. Let's see your low power mode. And that will show you how to do all your own leather work and make, let's set this to the side, make something like this. This is an absolute, just awesome little tool. You slide it in like so. Axes, hatchets, whatever. This one here I pack along when we're camping quite often. And a lot of little kids running around and such. See that? Just covers the beard only. And that, my friends, is exactly how you treat a handle, etc. Check this out. Oh, I'm telling you, pretty handy. Moving up in the world, when got away from kerosene, right? Well, thank you, folks. If you've been here for 23, darn near 24 minutes, wow, you need to get a life. Just kidding. Thank you for watching. Appreciate it. Tell me what you do. Check out Log Cabin Looms. Neat old guy. I like the guy. I think he's a bachelor. I'd like to meet him as well. He's out in, he's on the eastern part of the state. One of the conservatives on the eastern part of the state. You can buy these cans from your local hardware store. And now, she's always mixed up. Half linseed oil, half pine tar. Let me know what you think. Thanks, and happy trails.